Okay.
Hi there, we're finally live. Welcome. This is Sue from Acquiesce Winery, and we have a little tasting experience with Norma, our sommelier, Norma Poole. So it looks like we've got several people online already, so I think that maybe we can get started. Just going to introduce myself. I'm Sue Tipton, the owner and winemaker of Acquiesce Winery. We focus on white Rhone varietals. We have seven different date grapes, and today we're featuring 3 of them: our Grenache Blanc, our Viognier, and our Rosé. And I hope you all have a tasting package with you, and you join us, and we'll try the wine, and we'll pair it with some food. So we also have guests joining us today. They're travel planner radio hosts, and they've traveled to over 30 different countries trying wine, and they also write about their travels. So they're from St. Louis, I believe. Is that correct, Kevin and Sue? You want to let us know? I think that you're in St. Louis, and we can send people your way. Maybe you can share a link with us. So let me just see here. Okay. All right. So let's see if we can start off by talking a little bit about me. We started our winery in 2012. After I fell in love with a white Chutney wine, I thought it was the very best wine I've ever had, and wanted to plant the varietals here on our property. We have an 18-acre property in a campo, which is just outside of Lodi, in the Lodi McCullough River ADA. And we just totally fell in love with it. Started off in 2012 with a couple of cases, and right now we're up to 4,000 cases. And we've been basically selling out every year. A traditional year looks like 8 months of work, and 4 months our tasting room's closed. Of course, with COVID, it's been quite a bit different this year. So I want to introduce you to Norma Poole. Norma works with us in the tasting room, and she's a sommelier. Norma, do you want to say a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everyone. No, I don't, but I will. Well, thank you for joining us tonight. This is, to me, I'm so excited to talk about Acquiesce wines. My background includes over 8 years of teaching full-time at Viticulture and Winery Technology School in Napa Valley. And prior to that, I earned the certificate sommelier with a master course in Las Vegas. I've done a lot of work with wine for, well, it's kind of going into 30 years now. I don't like to say that because it makes me sound really old, but just really have done a lot of consulting, teaching with groups, and also had a Wine and Spirit Education Trust program, training people to take the WeSet, as we call it, and I've already gone through the WeSet program. So I found Acquiesce. I just stumbled into it, reading about the white Rhones. I love French wines. I primarily focused on teaching classes on French wines. And these were all classes that the students had to take to pass, and that could transfer on to a state university in California. My focus, I love French wine, and I came here and tasted these white Rhones. And I literally, I'm here to tell you, I was blown away. I had never had anything from California, actually anything outside of France, that tasted this good. And very honored to be here working for Rodney and Sue Tipton and exploring the gorgeous differences of these beautiful varietals. Every year they change, and every year they get, I don't know how they could, but they get better and better.
Great. Thanks, Norma. And I just wanted to let you know, this is a very informal event tonight. So if you have little comments you'd like to post in the sidebar or questions you'd like to talk about later, please go ahead and post. We're going to start off tonight with our Grenache Blanc, our 2019 Grenache Blanc wine. So if you want to pour yourself a little taste, don't fill it up to the tippy top of the glass. That's for after. Let's do just a little taste of it. And we'll talk a little bit about Grenache Blanc. Grenache Blanc is one of the most widely planted whites in France. However, in the U.S., there's only about 300 acres of Grenache Blanc. We think that it's an amazing food wine. It pairs with so many different foods. It's a great sushi wine, but yet if you want to have a ham sandwich with potato chips, Grenache Blanc is a great go-to. When our tasting room is open, it's not open right now due to COVID, but when our tasting room is open, we traditionally have 5 different wines and little food pairings. And we want to show people how food-friendly these wines are. Obviously, you can drink them all by themselves. They're great that way, but with food, it just kind of takes you over the top. So I get a lot of like a spiced apple and pear on the nose. What do you all get when you smell this wine? And then I'm going to listen for your comments on the side here. And let me see. Somebody wants to join in. So Norma, I'm going to have you talk about how to do your sensory analysis of wine.
Okay.
Norma's taught this in Napa before, and she's going to take you through this, and I'm going to be right back to you.
Well, this is a really important concept to learn how to, what I used to tell my students, approach wine. And, really, a lot of us go wine tasting or buy wines and we want to gulp it down right away. Nothing wrong with that. But you really enhance your tasting experience through an actual step process that just involves a little bit of a swirling. And, it looks super geek going to do this, but trust me, you are going to taste more from this wine and enhance your ability to identify some of the adjectives. And I know that in the years of teaching that I've taught thousands of students, and these were 18-week classes that I taught just on sensory evaluation, that most of my students either had done this before or had never done it before. Some said they couldn't do this and then ended up doing it. The ability to smell different aromas. And really, I spend a lot of time on the aroma. So the other thing that I love to do is look at the color. So if you have a white sheet of paper, you can tip the wine to the side. Oh, there's some other creatures enjoying my wine. They won't drink much. It's going to be my protein for tonight. So, but I hold it and tip it to the side, and you can see the coloration. White wine is more difficult to look at the color, only because it's so delicate. And Sue's wines see no oak. They see no malolactic fermentation, and all of those processes that change dramatically the varietal will completely change the color as well. So this is the color of the Grenache Blanc that is natural to the grape varietal Grenache Blanc. So I'm going to swirl it some more. A little bit of straw. And again, holding it up to, are you holding it up to white paper, anyone? Just kind of want to know what you're doing. It's kind of fun. Pink paper won't work. Feel free to, smooth body without being too, yeah, absolutely. All right, and then we're going to smell it now. And a good way to get the aroma right away is to cover it with your hand. So we're going to cover it, and what we're doing is we're trapping the aromas. Wine is in a bottle, and I guess you could say it is trapped there. So when you open it up, the esters and the alcohols will try to escape, and they bring up with it some beautiful aromas as well. So if you're, try this, and just really give it a good swirl, and then take your hand off and inhale deeply in the side of the glass. Inhale deeply, meaning those aromas need to go all the way up to the top here. If these, what I used to tell my students, little bunny sniffs aren't going to cut it. Bunny sniffs, are this like, okay, I'm going to gulp this now. because you need to get this little area back here is the olfactory epithelium. I know, long word, and that's all the biology we're going to talk about, really, I promise you. But it goes into your brain in different areas, and kind of like all your recognition of different adjectives of aromas kind of comes to play. So I'm getting on this. Well, first of all, what are you getting? Is anybody commenting on? We're still on the nose on this, so.
Yeah, there's a lingonberry, which is
lingonberry. Okay.
like cranberry in Sweden. Mm-hmm.
All right. Butterscotch. Oh, very nice. Anybody getting? What kind of fruits are you getting besides lingonberry? How about pear?
Yeah, definitely a pear and spicy pear, I think.
Yes, a spiced pear, of course. A spicy pear, apple. I think of an Anjou pear when I smell a Grenache Blanc. I just love it, and it's just really wants me to taste it now. So it's worth enough. Let's drink. Let's taste it. Taste that drink right now, anyway. Mmm. The bug didn't add anything to it, trust me. What I love about this Grenache Blanc, and I was thinking about this today, is that the nose of the spiced pear and apple follows through on the palate. And you know, sometimes, I would say for a lot of wine out there, you're smelling something, but you don't taste it. And so with a Grenache Blanc, the spiced apple and pear really follow through with it. And this has a great minerality, something that's almost like rubbing two stones together. And that might sound weird because we don't eat stones. But if you rub two stones together, there will be a powder kind of that come off of the stones. And so if you inhale that, but you can smell it and you can taste it in this wine. This is what happens when you are farming varietals without any manipulation in the winery, and also following the strict rules of Lodi, the Lodi rules, which Acquiesce belongs to. So are we ready for the tasting, Sue?
Yes, let's taste.
Should we? Okay. So now we've got here.
Share with you what the Grenache Blanc grapes look like. We just picked over the last 3 days our Grenache Blanc. And so this is a Grenache Blanc cluster. And as you can see, it's a very large cluster of grapes. And it has what we call shoulders on it. So these little pieces up at the top are shoulders. It does very well in Lodi. One challenge we have in the vineyard is to keep the crop levels low, because Lodi is a great growing region. And we're making premium varietals, so we want to keep the crop levels low. So these were picked and whole cluster pressed. So we hand pick all of our grapes here, our estate grapes. Everything's estate. And we whole cluster press them. So right now we have 2 tanks of Grenache Blanc juice, and we can't wait to turn that into wine. So, okay, let's drink, Norma.
Oh, beautiful. Oh, those clusters are perfect. Are those real?
They're real.
They're real. Okay, so now we're going to pair this with these little toastettes. They're imported from France, and I'm sure you've seen them in the tasting room before. If not, you can get some. And it's a chèvre, a goat cheese. And what's on top of this is a little violet flower confit. Now, these come in little jars from Le Pecurion, and they're from French farms, from France. The violet flower confit, a confit, is something that you reduce to its smallest part or flavor or ingredient through extensive cooking down. Now, it's not like duck confit, even though that is the same concept. Duck confit is rendered in its own fat. But, of course, violet flower confit doesn't have fat. It is like a simple syrup with some really intense flavors of violets. Lovely nuances of flavor. So I think we should try our wine real quick again. Yeah, a little delicious bug. I wonder how that's going to pair with my little toast here.
Should be great.
Yeah. Well, you know.
So one reason we really enjoy pairing the violet flower confit in the tasting room with Grenache Blanc is because People typically pick out citrus or fruits because they eat them all the time. They have a harder time picking up florals. And I think after trying the violet tonka, you can pick up the violet nuances of this one.
What did you think about the pairing? Those of you out there, what do you think?
How does it work?
I'm sorry?
We're all drinking and eating, I think. So, you want to type in here? Love it.
Ah, wonderful. Yeah, yummy. Very yummy.
That's the one, we have many different condiments, but that's the one we keep coming back to because so many of our club members enjoy it. We even have a little girl whose parents buy it, and she uses it on her peanut butter sandwiches. So,
well, I'd like to add one thing about all the years that I've taught food and wine pairing. A lot of us think about pairing food and wine that it has to have similar tastes and flavors. And really, there's a whole school of thought that it's about, some great chefs do it, about contrasting. So what I think really works with this pairing is the contrast of the floral, the intensity on the crunchy toast with the beautiful spice pear and apple on the Grenache Blanc. You really wouldn't think that those two would go together, but they do. They work. And just keep on, that is the beauty of good pairing. Absolutely. Yeah. Love it. So I just wanted to add that. Don't be afraid to try different things. People have asked me over the years, what should I pair with? What should I pair with? And I ask them a lot of questions. What is the acid level in your food? What's the acid in your wine? Is it fruity in the wine? Is it fruity in the food? Thinking about those different components will really help you along. And just trying it yourself, experimenting, is a great idea. Well, I drank mine, Sue.
Yeah, you drank it all?
Yes, I did. Bugs and everything. The bugs were really, actually, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. One thing, too, about Grenache Blanc I'd like to talk about, what we find in the tasting room is it's always an experience teaching people that don't know these varietals what they're about. But one thing we found is because the Grenache Blanc is in the Grenache family, it has this big mid palate, a big mouth feel like a red wine would have. So lots of times we have that as the top of the list. People that come in that traditionally are not white wine drinkers try that wine and they're blown away by it because they think of white wines as being either totally acidic, like a really Pinot Grigio, or a wine that has oak in it, like Chardonnay. So these really are different than what most people have tried.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And I think we could probably go on to our Viognier.
The next one? Okay.
Yeah, so pour yourself a little Viognier.
Viognier. And remember, for now, just a sip so you can swirl the dickens out of it. I know it's tempting.
So we only have 1 acre of Viognier planted here. Now, out of all the varietals that we grow, Viognier is a little more common than the others. There's about 3,000 acres of Viognier in the U.S. planted. A lot of it is on the East Coast, but there's a lot planted around Lodi and in Lodi. Viognier has very different characteristics depending on the winemaker. So during fermentation, Viognier actually, unlike the other wines, will equate to higher alcohol levels, something about the wine itself. And if you're not careful to pick it early at lower sugar levels, you could end up with a really big wine that sometimes has what is called like a kerosene flavor to it. We always keep our Viognier under 14% alcohol, and we take all of our wines to dryness. So Viognier also traditionally has a sweetness to it, but I think you'll find that the nose will fool you and make you think that this might be a sweet wine that you'll be drinking because it has such a big nose of stone fruits, tangerine, white flowers. And so when we get people in the tasting room that like sweeter wines, and we don't have a sweet wine here, we will let them try the Viognier first because their brain thinks that it's sweet due to the nose. And very palatable. We've won several awards for our Viognier. We won Best Viognier in California at the California State Fair back in 2016. It's every year we win several awards for this wine, and it sells out every year also. And we're getting close to that, actually.
Mm.
So Norma, what do you pick up as far as the notes in the nose?
Well, first of all, I see a little bit of that, a little bit more gold on the color of this wine. And I attribute that to just the coloration of the skins, even though you press it gently off immediately, correct, Sue?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
It's such a prettier, more full, makes me think, oh, I'm going to have a full-bodied wine here when I look at the color. And then the nose on it, I was quite shocked when I tried Sue's Viognier for the first time. Just real quick with my little story. I fell in love with French wines and really didn't drink a lot of, for like 25 years, and a lot of white wines from California, period. Because of the oak, the manipulation in the winery to change the flavors. It's like, why are you changing the flavors? So I never have liked a Viognier from California, ever. Stick my nose up to it. It's oaked. It's high in alcohol. It's got, like, I'm not eating candy apricots here. So when I visited here over 2 years ago and I tried Sue's Viognier, I was just like, this can't be Viognier. This cannot be Viognier because of the cleaned palate. On the entry, I get a little bit of those, what I called, when I first tasted this, May flower blossoms or fruit flower blossoms, a little lemongrass. It's just this gorgeous, it's really complex, very, very complex, but it doesn't overwhelm me thinking, oh, wow, this is one-dimensional. My notes on this, I always have to refer to them because I had so many notes on this Viognier. A little tangerine, maybe a hint of, well, the lemon, of course. And then when I taste it, I'm getting some of those, but drier notes of those elements with that beautiful, almost a little bit of white pepper. And when I go like this, I'm getting another effect of sensory evaluation, which is called the retronasal passage. So we involuntarily, when we taste something, it goes up into our back passageway from, I promised you no more biology, but really this is fun to do. Just try it. Up into the nose and back down again. So I'm getting so much more from that. But the thing about the zest, the tangerine zest on this, but it's a dry finish, but it's a complex finish. So I don't know. I just blown away by this Viognier. And I have actually had this with filet mignon with butter. I've had it with spring rolls from Young's Market. No, I kid you not. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to say that. I don't make it myself. And braised meats. I mean, you'd think, no, this does not do that. This is more for like Asian, because it's got those Asian stone fruit complexities. And by the way, the stone fruit part of this palate, mid-palate, you know what I'm talking about, like nectarines and apricots. This is something that is extremely unusual to find in California, especially a warmer appellation like Lodi wine. They're typically found, actually, the typical description for wines from colder regions like Alsace, France, and Germany. So I've always been marveled at the stone fruit quality. How do you do it, Sue? I mean, and you know, she always says, oh, it's the soil and this and that, but it is her exquisite wine growing. So any comments there? Comments?
Yeah, the key to making wines expressive like this is to not really mess them up. So as long as your vineyard is treated well, and we have beautiful alluvial sandy loam soils here, which bring the minerality into the grapes, as long as we don't add something to take away this great flavor Mother Nature is giving us, we end up with a great product. So also, one of the fun things I think about Viognier too is when you have vegetable type dishes that are difficult to pair with a traditional wine. Um, oh, there's a little note there. When traditionally, these Viogniers pair very well with arugula, um, with broccoli, asparagus, all these different vegetables that would be difficult to pair with a wine. It actually puts the bitterness in the background during the pairing and brings forward the sweet aromatics from this wine. And one of our favorite pairings was actually a lamb tagine at a winemaker dinner that we had. People could not believe, like Norma said, that this wine pairs well with red meats. So, yeah, so I guess we're getting some hints on the mic. So hopefully that helps. Rodney's our technical person here. So let me say about Rodney while we're talking about Rodney. He's our total operations guru. So basically, it's Rodney and I in the winery, and we're making these wines ourselves. We don't have a big crew. We have a couple guys that help us with the cleanup process, but we're doing it. But Rodney's helped make this operations run smooth and efficiently. And when we started this in our late 50s, we said we were going to make this as much fun as possible. And in order to do that, we have a review every year and saying, are we still having fun? And Rodney helps make the fun happen. So, oh, Kevin and Sue said that they did a toasted cauliflower with Greek seasoning, and the very slight astringency clears the palate with every sip. Oh, wow.
That
sounds great.
Delicious.
So let's talk about the pairing that we've got tonight with this one.
Okay.
So mango cheese with the mango chutney.
So we have, I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So we've got a little square. Rodney makes them small now because if they're large, when I'm doing this, I make a mess all over my face and my clothes. So it's a little manchego and just a little bit of that mango chutney from L'Epicurian, the company that I was just telling you about. And the thing about this mango chutney is it has just really a little teeny bit of, I have a very low threshold for curry. It has a tiny bit of curry in it, but with the pulpiness of the mango, it really goes with the Viognier, pretty spectacular. And on top of manchego, which is really a go-to cheese that it lends a little bit of richness. It's not too dry of a cheese. So what I'm going to do, as I always do, I taste the wine again. I don't have any bugs in this one, so. All right, and I'm going to try a little taste of this. So I still made a mess. Okay, so what are you all thinking about the pairing?
Yes, do you like it? So just a side note for this mango chutney, if you ever want to play with something really fun, you take bacon, you smear the mango chutney over the bacon, put it in the oven till the bacon's crispy. We call it bacon crack, actually, because it is so addicting and it's so tasty. So you might want to give that a try. So he said it sounds good. Yeah, it's great.
So some comments about the manchego and the mango chutney. Sue loved the chutney with the manchego. It really, again, I think this is more of a contrast with a little hint of curry in it. And the stone fruit quality going with stone fruit ability of the Viognier. So there's a compare and contrast with this.
Mm-hmm.
Do any of you have questions about that? About comparing and contrasting food and wine pairing?
Jim and Gail are going to try the bacon next time.
Try the bacon. Oh boy. Whew. Now, Sue, that's interesting because of something salty. The Viognier does very well with.
Mm-hmm.
Like the bacon.
Yeah, it's really lovely. It's just really fun. But Viognier, like I said, is probably more unusual than the other varietals that we have in that it has that big, overpowering nose when you're trying it, and it's just been a joy. We've really enjoyed having that wine here. So, are you ready to move on to the next one, Norma, or do you have something more to say about Viognier? Huh?
No, just keep, it's Sue's wines have that, she has a classic style of, they change and you think, well, upon release, how can these wines be any better than what they are? They do become more incredibly complex, and the finish is so lovely. And I think a lot of white wines, they fall flat completely on the entry, and then all of a sudden you're like, okay, where is the wine? So the Viognier is changing dramatically. I just had some the other night, and it's just a wow. It's a wow wine. It's really because, and this is critical for me because I've never liked California Viognier ever. Mm-hmm. So it's really something else what you're doing in the vineyard, Sue.
Well, that's a good point too. These wines age really well. So we're asked all the time, should you just drink the wine within a year? And I always say that if you're purchasing an inexpensive store white wine, serve it as cold as possible and drink it within the year. These wines you don't want to serve super cold because they have so much going on as they warm up. And also, I think that we've had verticals with our staff. Early on, we've just sold out of wine so quickly we don't have a huge library. But we did have vertical tastings with our staff and wines back to 2011, and they aged beautifully. So if you like older wines, try to age them. Yeah.
I have notes on those, all of those. I did a sensory evaluation on all of those beautiful older wines, and I'd be happy to share those with you. My email is som@av-wine.com. And I'd love to share those with you because it really took me quite some time to evaluate. They were very complex. They were very mind-blowing. These are California whites, no way. So very exciting to age a few of these wines if you can.
Yeah, and on our blog, we have a couple of videos of Norma talking about aging wines. So check out our blog posts and videos about, the difference between a wine that's a year old versus one that's several years old, what you can expect. And definitely check that out.
Yeah, and also just email me. I love the questions. I've had some great questions from all of you. It's just, I love it. So, well, are we ready for the rosé?
Rosé, yes.
All right. So, you going to talk about this, Sue, or you want me to?
Well, you can talk about the color, and I'll talk about the grapes. How's that?
Okay. Well, you know how I love talking about the color of this wine. And I'm going to pour some. In my career of knowing and working in wineries and teaching right in the heart of the Napa Valley, and these people pull their hair out trying to make rosé with color. Doesn't that sound weird? Does anybody think that's weird? But it's not so much on the flavor; it's the color, and it's hard. It's very difficult to get this beautiful salmon, almost a sunset. Kind of a pink kind of color. So tip it and look at it and just enjoy that gorgeous, gorgeous color. I know I've tasted with quite a few people from France in the past. I was a buyer for a while at a retail store in Napa. And the French really like to spend a lot of time on color. And I learned a lot from that because smelling and tasting should be a very sensual thing. It should be remarkable for the eyes, for the ears, and also the nose and palate. So you're incorporating all of your senses with wine, and not to mention how good it makes us feel when we drink a beautiful wine like this. So swirling it and looking at it, and really, Sue, I'm going to ask you in a little bit, how do you get this gorgeous color? How about now?
Yes. So we have 1 acre of an Albin clone Grenache for our rosé, and also a half acre of a Tablas Creek red Grenache for this rosé. The Alban clone gives it more of a salmon characteristic color, and the Tablas is definitely a bright pink color. And I think blended together, it's a really nice combination. But also, we consider ours a dedicated rosé, so it's not Saignée method. So for those of you that don't know what Saignée is, Saignée is when a winemaker is going to make a red wine, and early on in the process, he bleeds off a portion of that wine to make a rosé with it. The challenge is with this way of making wine is that you're dealing with a red wine, basically, so it's picked at higher sugar levels and lower acid levels. So a winemaker has to adjust that in the winery. So there's some manipulation that has to go on to make it palatable. So we don't do that here because we pick the grapes when the sugars are pretty low and the acids are high. And we whole cluster press them. And that's what gives us the rosé that we have. So you want to talk about the nose, Norma?
I'd love to. All right. Well, we're at the end of summer now, going into fall, although we haven't told our weather that yet. But I'm from back east like you are, Sue, so and ready. So I can only wish. But all I smell are these lush red raspberries and strawberries, like a basket of fresh summer fruit. And, seriously, I do drink rosé year round. A lot of people have the concept of rosé is a short-lived thing. And I want to tell you, this rosé ages like, it's crazy how it ages. I just opened a 2018. I had a magnum of it, which Sue has told me, right, Sue? We have a few magnums. And, I opened one the other day and it said 18. Most 2018 rosés are done. They're done. All you can taste is just like acid that kind of grips your throat area, which isn't pleasant at all. 2018 was remarkable. The complexity all the way through, from the entry to the mid palate to the finish, still maintaining more of a dried strawberry and dried raspberry flavor, but ending with this crisp minerality, still holding it together. So it's quite remarkable. But yeah, I always look at my notes because I always get carried away here. But there are definitely those mineral notes again on this. And let's taste it. Are you getting what you smelled? I'd like to know, everybody, what you...
Yeah, I get strawberry and watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
A little cranberry on the back end.
Yeah.
Anybody else get anything? Some people say lime. Sometimes they pick up on it. One thing about rosés, I think I like to share with my customers is that rosés pair with any food. So if you're going to go out to lunch with a couple other couples and somebody's having a cheeseburger and then somebody else is having a salad, get a bottle of rosé. It'll pair nicely with all the food at the table.
Yeah, this rosé has body, and again, we haven't talked about alcohol levels, but very low in alcohol, considering we're in a warm climate, and alcohol fruit tends to get very, very high because the ripening gets high, right? So,
Yes.
So this is what, 13.8, 13.5? That's
It's
right.
13.5, yes.
Yeah, that's really unbelievable how you get that, Sue, because of the warm climate and the very sharp increases in temperature going into late summer and fall. So, of course, that all goes back to picking perfectly and keeping an eye on your what's going on with the sugar.
Yeah, and on that note, Norma, I think it's kind of key too. What we see here in Lodi, if you don't know, has 110,000 acres of wine grapes. It's the largest AVA in the U.S. And it has more wine grapes than Napa and Sonoma combined. But what you see here sometimes is that the grapes have to kind of sit in the vineyard, even though they're ready, because the winery is not ready to take them. They can't take all the grapes at once. And so the grower is kind of waiting for the winery to accept the grapes. And we walk the vineyard every single day before harvest. We've been doing this for like 12 years now, so we know what the grapes are supposed to look like, what they're supposed to taste like.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's key to pick within that window. And we have that luxury here because we're a small, handcrafted producer. But the larger wineries have to manipulate these grapes that come in not at the ideal time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I've seen that in the history of all the wineries that I've worked for. It is crazy. I don't want to give away any names or anything, but anyway, I just love this, and I think this rosé is totally the epitome of a beautiful rosé that red wine lovers would go for in a heartbeat, because it does have a full mouthfeel. I got a really beautiful mouthfeel, which I get with your wines, Sue. And it's just gorgeous. It hangs in there, and it goes with so many options, like Sue was saying, all kinds of food options, and on its own.
What about the pairing?
Oh, the pairing. I got carried away. Very nice. The go-to wine. All right. Well, the pairing is, I'm sure some of you know that we have this 100-year-old cherry farm that we get our cherry pepper jelly from. And we've offered this pairing many times here in the tasting room. There's just a little bit of chili pepper in the cherries to enhance the little tanginess of this that the wine actually brings out. So let's go ahead and taste it. Actually, let's taste the wine again. Oh, darn.
Yeah, so we like to try the wine first, so you have the idea of the wine on your palate when you taste the food.
Also, you can add the cherry pepper jelly, just mix it in with some cream cheese.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Spicy, huh?
Got a kick to it.
Yeah. Is it kicking you? Do you want more wine?
So I used to tell my friends too, when Rodney's not home, he used to travel quite a bit for work. I'd get some cream cheese and some cherry pepper jelly over the top and a bottle of rosé, and that was dinner. He won't go for that. That works for me.
This is wonderful. I'd like to hear your comments. What do you think? Have all of you tried this before, or is this a new pairing? How many of you?
Jelly's from Linden, which is nearby Lodi. And it's from a cherry orchard that was planted in the 1800s. And the woman that actually makes the cherry pepper jelly comes to our tasting room and delivers it. And I've tried other cherry type pepper jellies, but this one I think has quite a bit of flavor to it. And I think it's a really nice pairing with our rosé.
And so she says, seriously, this is a 100-year-old recipe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've asked her how far back, how could she prove that? And she said, if I tell you, I'll have to kill you. So, but anyway, it's, I think this is such a cool pairing and you can do so much with it. But the rosé on its own is dynamite. 0% residual sugar actually on all of your wines, Sue.
Yes, all of them.
Yeah.
One of our favorite pairings is pepperoni pizza with this. So Marshall and Zoe say it really brings out the strawberry in the nose with the cherry pepper. So yeah, I agree. It really does. But we try not to, we have these very world-class intensive wines, and our experience at the tasting room, we try not to make them over the top where people lose people in the translation. So we also like to give you suggestions. So not only foie gras with our Roussan, but also Doritos with our rosé.
Mm-hmm. All right. Are there any comments, questions for any of you?
We're getting kind of ready to wrap things up, and we'd really like to have you ask some questions. Oh, so Kevin and Sue are having dinner right now with some French bread, salami, and prosciutto. And cream cheese. Sue says this is definitely her favorite. Well, Sue, we agree. The two Sues. Yeah. Great, great. That sounds like a wonderful
That's
thing.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So I think we could probably wrap things up. I'm really excited to be able to share our wines with you. We used to share them in the tasting room in person, and it's really fun to do it while you're sitting in your pajamas and tasting our wines. And we hope that we can answer any questions that come up. So Sarah's having ratatouille. Oh, Norma, what would you say?
Ratatouille. Ah,
Gosh, I can.
eggplant. That eggplant, all those wonderful vegetables. Sue, what do you
Yeah.
think? I have my idea, but what do you think?
Well, I would tend to go with the Grenache Blanc with that. And maybe even the Roussan if you had Roussan. I don't know if you have one of our Roussans,
Hmm.
but you might want to try that. The Roussan goes lovely with tomato-based dishes. We pair it in the tasting room with manchego with grated tomato and fresh rosemary,
Hmm.
and it's a lovely pairing. So, but I think the Grenache Blanc would be one that would pair really well with it. Of course, the rosé pairs well with anything.
Absolutely.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm so happy to you all joined us tonight on Friday night. I hope you all have a great weekend coming
Thank
up.
you. Thank you
Stay
very much.
cool. Thank you. All righty. Cheers. Cheers,
Yeah.
Norma.
Cheers. Cheers, Sue. Cheers, everyone.
Ding.